Hello and welcome to this month's book review. I'm assuming you've just watched that short video of Robin Williams by now. The thing that matters are others, way beyond yourself. Self goes away, ego bye-bye. Realize there are a lot of other great people to be grateful for and an amazing God. Other than that, good luck. That is what life is about. Now, the topic today, as you know, is about humility. And this follows on from our previous month's discussion about mental health and mental illness and things like that. And I'm taking it from another stance, from what humility is and what it isn't. Okay, and I'm hoping that this book will reflect it as we review it today. But I believe the reason why I actually started with that video from Robin Williams, for those of you who know Robin, you know he sadly passed away, and it was done because he committed suicide. Now, fundamentally, that's one of his beliefs. It's fair enough. That's you'd feel a very selfless, sacrificing comment. And I think to the extent I think he went to the end of his life, we now feel that perhaps his interpretation of that was a bit extreme and perhaps taken humility a little bit further than where it should have gone. Yes, humility. It involves a bit of humiliation sometimes, yes, and it's the word humility is part of that group of words depicting humbleness, humiliation. And so it brings me to this book, which I saw, and I thought, oh, we definitely need to discuss humility. So it's clear in everybody's minds, not in an unhealthy way, but in a healthy way. And I'm going to say humility stems from you yourself being humble enough to acknowledge when you need assistance and help and be willing to get that assistance, as well as being humble to identify others' needs as well. To consider others as the only people that matter and yourself doesn't clearly indicates an imbalance, because that's not the truth. You matter too, not just others. And people can abuse you, and your self-sacrificing acts. The Lord tells us in the New Testament that if people don't accept you, he even gives us the authority. Dust your shoes and walk off. It's nothing to do with you, because he sees that no matter how humble and sincere you are, there are others that are just people that are just not going to accept you, or they might not accept the gospel, what have you. And so a healthy humility is what I think we need to exercise here, which constitutes good mental health as well. I hope by now you have registered your interest in hearing about the book, the free book, and the webinar that I've advertised about mental health, good mental health, and mental health, a Christian journey, because in that I discuss a lot about what can aid your mental health and clarify the issues around mental health. But putting that aside, tonight we're talking about humility. And as I said, humility, it starts from understanding humility and what it is and what it isn't. It's not denying yourself to the point whereby you're damaging yourself, because it's a sin to commit suicide. So clearly Jesus didn't mean that we should be humble to the point where we kill ourselves in an instance or cause that. We see acts of martyrism done by Stephen, one of the chosen ones to serve the apostles and serve the ministry of taking care of the food for the widows. He was stoned to death. He didn't commit himself. He didn't commit suicide. No, somebody actually murdered him. They killed him. And that's different. He's dying for something he believes in, but he didn't commit suicide. It was just caught in the act of violence because of his beliefs, and someone else murdered him. It's a total difference. But humility, what is it? So the book Humility, written by Andrew Murry, as I said, I'm hoping through reading through the little snippets I've got, that I can see that it's going to provide a balance, really, for what humility is and what it isn't. And I'm hoping that that statement and what Robin said at the start would be a knock-on highlight to you of how humility can be taken too far and misinterpreted. Others are important, but so are you. And I think it's interesting, he calls it a Christian gift. He talks about a Christian gift at the beginning. So you kind of know there's something that was said previously to warrant him saying a Christian gift. He also mentions other religions, but he definitely highlighted a Christian gift. So humility certainly for a Christian is not about sacrificing yourself to the point where you commit suicide. That is not what it's about. Humility is about understanding and appreciating your own needs and those of others, and respecting yourself and others, and identifying when you cannot help somebody as well. As Jesus said, you dust your shoes and you go off, and that's it. It's up to them now, because you've offered them the gospel, you've shared your joy in him and the truth, and they didn't want to accept it. So without further ado, into the book, Humility by Andrew Murry. Okay. Just bear with me. Just open the pages. Okay. So first off, we're given a list of the contents in this book, Humility. It starts off with a preface, and it says the glory of the creature, the secret of redemption, humility in the life of Jesus, humility in the teaching of Jesus, humility in the disciples of Jesus, humility in daily life, humility in holiness, humility in sin, humility in faith, humility in death to self, humility in happiness, humility in exaltation. So, right, it talks about it. It's basically, you can see the outline of the concept of humility around the various aspects of the Christian faith, and the comparisons between some pretty key doctrines about various topics in Christianity there. So it's got a good range. So let's go in. The secret of redemption, it says here, have this mind in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, and humbled himself, becoming obedient even unto death. Wherefore God also highly exalted him. Philippians 2:5-9. Remember now, Jesus never committed suicide. He followed a cause, his purpose. His purpose was to come and to redeem us. And the only way that can be done is through his ministry, his death, his resurrection, and his burial and his resurrection. So that was a special case. And if Jesus has already done that, that clearly indicates it doesn't need to be done again. And it doesn't need anything else added to it. He's the last and final high priest, and we have assurance in him. So he doesn't expect us to produce any sacrifices there in any format, in any, given format in that respects. So I've read the verse there. It started from Philippians 2, verses 5 to 9. Okay. And when the book goes in, it starts with, no tree can grow except on the root from which it sprang. Through all its existence, it can only live with the life that was in the seed that gave it being. The full apprehension of this truth in its application to the first and the second Adam cannot but help us greatly to understand both the need and the nature of the redemption there is in Jesus. Again, we hear this thing, redemption. Yes, it's redemption. It's all about the secret redemption. The need. When the old serpent, he who had been cast out from heaven for his pride, whose whole nature as devil was pride, spoke his words of temptation into the ear of Eve. These words carried with them the very prison of hell, and when she listened and yielded her desire and her will to the prospect of being as God, knowing God, good and evil, the poison entered into her soul and blood and life, destroying forever the blessed humility and dependence upon God which would have been our everlasting happiness. And instead of this, her life and the life of the race that sprang from her became corrupt to its very root with that most terrible of all sins and all curses, the poison of Satan's own pride. All the wretchedness of which this world has been the scene, all its wars and bloodshed among the nations, all its selfishness and suffering, all its ambitions and jealousies, all its broken hearts and embittered lives, with all its daily unhappiness, have their origin in what this cursed hellish pride, either our own or that of ours, has brought us. It is pride that made redemption needful. It is from our pride we need above everything to be redeemed, and our insight into the need of redemption will largely depend upon our knowledge of the terrible nature of the power that has entered our being. No tree can grow except on the root from which it sprang. The power that Satan brought from hell and cast into man's life is working daily, hourly, with mighty power throughout the world. Men suffer from it. They fear and fight and flee it. And yet they know not whence it comes, whence it has its terrible supremacy. No wonder they do not know where or how it is to be overcome. Pride has its root and strength in a terrible spiritual power outside of us, as well as within us. As needful as it is that we confess and deploy it as our very own, is to know it in its satanic origin. If this leads us to utter despair of ever conquering or casting it out, it will lead us all the sooner to that supernatural power in which alone our deliverance is to be found, the redemption of the Lamb of God. The hopeless struggle against the workings of self and pride within us may indeed become still more hopeless as we think of the power of darkness behind it all. The utter despair will fit us the better for realizing and accepting a power and a life outside of ourselves too. Even the humility of heaven has brought down and brought nigh by the Lamb of God to cast out Satan and his pride. No tree can grow except on the root from which it sprang, even as we need to look to the first Adam and his fall to know the power of the sin within us. We need to know well the second Adam and his power to give within us a life of humility, as real and abiding and overmastering as has been that of pride. We have our life from and in Christ, as truly, yea, more truly than from and in Adam. We are to walk rooted in him, holding fast the head, from whom the whole body increaseth with the increase of God. The life of God, which in the incarnation entered human nature, is a root in which we are to stand and grow. It is the same almighty power that worked there, and thence onward to the resurrection, which works daily in us. Our one need is to study and know and trust the life that has been revealed in Christ as a life that is now ours. So that gives you a taste of what the book deals with and the tone and how it's written. And it's pretty much in line with, I'd say, seriously addressing the point about redemption and sin. And it clearly quite states humility as pointing to Christ. Sometimes we go through issues and trials in life and we're rejected. I did a section on rejection and how you're supposed to properly treat it. And sometimes we go through issues in life which we're constantly bashed and constantly put through torment and trials and tribulation. Hence why we need fellowship with other fellow Christians and counselling on a regular basis, and also just associate with positive people who believe in the same things you do about Christ. On the back of the book, it states, there are three great motives that urge us to humility. It becomes me as a creature, as a sinner, as a saint. The first we see in the heavenly host, in unfallen man, in Jesus, the Son of Man. The second appeals to us in our fallen state and points out the way, the only way, through which we can return to our right place as creatures. In the third, we have the mystery of grace, which teaches us that as we lose ourselves in the overwhelming greatness of redeeming love, humility becomes to us the consummation of the consummation of everlasting blessedness and adoration. Then it says a bit about the New Christian Classic Library. When I look back upon my own religious experiences around upon the Church of Christ in the world, I stand amazed at the thought of how little humility is sought after as the distinguishing feature of the discipleship of Jesus in preaching and living, in the daily intercourse of the home and social life, in the more special fellowship of Christians, in the direction and performance of work for Christ. Alas, how much proof there is that humility is not esteemed the cardinal virtue, the only root from which the graces can grow, the one indispensable condition of true fellowship with Jesus. So that was the review. It's a serious book. It deals quite in depth about humility, and I think we clearly see from the start of how this review began that if taken out of context can be quite dangerous. And I think this book will steer us in the right direction. And I think more importantly, remember the resources you have around you to clearly outline what humility is and what it isn't. So yes, be humble in respects to the things of God and one another, and having respect for others. But more importantly, be humble towards yourself to assess your needs as well. And in your selflessness, you owe it to others to be mindful of yourself and to take care that you're well informed and well educated in the things concerning humility and concerning your faith as a Christian, so you can share accurate information and be a strength as intended to fulfill your purpose in the body of Christ. And on that note, I'm going to end this month's book review. Next month, join me for another exciting book. Remember that if you would like your book reviewed by myself, please do submit it. It's free of charge. I don't charge you for doing it. It's a pleasure and a joy to serve you in that way. All I say is, could you provide a digital copy? It doesn't have to be the full book, just snippets of it that you feel would basically summarize the whole book, or give enough information to whet people's appetites as to whether they want to read it or not. So that was Humility by Andrew Murray. And once again, I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave your comments below. I look forward to receiving them. Okay, take care. Bye.